We're about to start a show. Hope it's good. Let's go. Well, hello and welcome back to the Steve Skojec Show. It's only been a couple of months. Actually, the last show that I did was I don't think it was on the day of the election. I think it was the day after. And there was an inauguration today, so it seemed like an appropriate time to try to get another episode on the air. Yes, I know. I'm supposed to be doing more shows. I'm working on it. Look, I'm working on it. All right. But it was a big day today. And I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about what Trump said, because I kind of feel like it was a big deal. I'm noticing that I sound a little wheezy on the microphone. I'm having allergies tonight. I was sneezing a minute ago. And if I sound slightly asthmatic, that's why. First thing I want to address before I get to the Trump thing, just really quickly, I posted on the Substack today a fundraiser for my family, a Kickstarter. I called it a Kickstarter because we're on the cusp, man. We're working on so much stuff, and it's going to be good really soon. But we're not this month not generating the revenue that we needed, and we have a business that's kind of a sinking Titanic right now, and it's just not working out. So anyway, I put it out. We already met our goal today, which is amazing. The goal is actually less than we need because we're that far behind, but that's fine because it's a great start. Every single person who is watching the show who helped us to meet that goal, thank you so freaking much. Like, I may be wheezing, but I feel like I can breathe for the first time in months. It's just been a vice. And we're working hard, and I know we're going to be okay. But just thank you. Thank you. On behalf of my family, thank you. So we'll leave it at that. All right, let's move on to Trump's speech because I thought it was pretty awesome. And what I want to do is this. We're going to skip past the formalities and we're going to jump into the opening section of his speech. I'm only going to do Trump video audio for that opening section, and then we'll talk through the speech. I might pull it back up, but I kind of want to just verbally go through it with you. But this opening section, let me give you a sort of an intro as to why I just want to do this first few paragraphs. This is the most optimistic, forward-looking speech I've heard a president give in my adult lifetime. This is on par again with Reagan, It's Morning in America. It's like that. It's like, hey guys, remember who we are? We're the freaking United States of America. And let's be awesome again. And here's how we're going to do it. So let me cut right to Trump. Let's listen to what he has to say, and then we'll talk about it.
The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first.
What a novel concept.
Our sovereignty will be reclaimed. Our safety will be restored. The scales of justice will be rebalanced. The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end. And our top priority will be to create a nation that is proud, prosperous, and free. America will soon be greater, stronger, and far more exceptional than ever before. I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success. A tide of change is sweeping the country. Sunlight is pouring over the entire world. And America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before. But first, we must be honest about the challenges we face. While they are plentiful, they will be annihilated by this great momentum that the world is now witnessing in the United States of America.
So that was sort of the intro to the speech before he delves into the problems that the country is facing. And what I loved about this is, he's interesting, right? So he's really calm this time around. I joked earlier that this isn't Trump the gray, it's Trump the white. A little Gandalf reference for you Tolkien fans out there. But he's kind of come back from this assassination attempt and the lawfare and everything else. And he feels like a different guy to me. He feels much more measured, much more reserved, much more confident, but not in sort of a bragging and egotistical way, which he has a tendency to do. This is a version of Trump that I like better. It's a more mature and restrained version of Trump. And I thought that this whole speech was really good. Let me actually flip over so you guys can see the speech. And I apologize for the fact that it's on the MSNBC website. It was the first place I found the speech that wasn't behind a paywall. My beverage is running low. All right, so he says, as he moves on from that section, in the United States of America, as we gather today, our government confronts a crisis of trust. So this is something I've been talking about a lot. I write about it on the Substack. I write about it online on X. We have this gigantic loss of trust in our institutions and in our experts and in our leadership. And that loss of trust is creating a lot of problems. What I see is we're at this point where we need experts, right? We need institutions because we need the people who are the best and brightest in their respective fields, who have done the research to understand complicated topics, to be able to explain those to us and to do so with credibility, because we're not all experts. We're not all scientists. We're not all astronomers, not physicists, not doctors, not lawyers, not whatever. The average citizen needs to be able to have people who can say, hey, listen, I've done this work for a long time. I've put in my 20 years, my 30 years. I understand these topics. This is why we're doing what we're doing. Let me break it down. And that credibility that comes with the time, the effort that they put in matters, right? Because we can't break it all down ourselves. We don't have the ability to DIY ourselves through every single expertise and area of study, every academic realm. Just because we can read things online does not mean that we fully understand the scope of every complex problem. And so I think that the loss of trust in our government, in our institutions, and among our experts is actually creating a knowledge vacuum. And what it does is, because people distrust official sources, they end up trusting unofficial and alternative sources regardless of how credible they are or are not. And that leads to a ton of conspiracy theorism, and not sort of the responsible kind of, we have a reason not to trust the government because we have precedent. We have this and we have this, we have this. It's more like, I like how that feels more, so I'm going to just go with that. Or that's not the official explanation, so I think that's the one that I'm going to buy into. And anybody can present themselves as an expert online, and they don't have to prove anything. If they say things and people think it sounds right, then they talk about it, they spread it, they share it, they believe it, and it grows. And so in a way, what we're doing is we're entering into kind of a dark age, but it's a dark age that is not from a lack of information. It's from an excess of information that people don't know how to sort and sift and filter and think their way through. And so people will follow anybody who sounds credible. And a lot of those people, unfortunately, are, shysters. They're charlatans, snake oil salesmen, and they'll just believe what they say. So it's a dangerous time. where we, and I was going to talk about this a little bit on this episode. I think I'm going to have to make a second episode about this. There was some new UFO footage that came out this week and stuff. But at the same time, we're seeing new AI video come out. There's a show on Apple TV called Severance. If you haven't seen it, it's a great, surreal, high strangeness kind of science fiction show that is set in this very sterile office place where, the people who go to work, they get a procedure done where they have severance in their brain where they have an operation, and their work self only remembers work and their home self only remembers home, and never the two shall meet, right? So they don't know. The people who are at the office refer to themselves as innies because they're always in the office, and the people, their other version of themselves are the outies, and they kind of go back and forth. Anyway, that's just sort of laying the groundwork for a new season of the show has come out after 3 years. It's taken that long for the new show to get made. And there was an opening sequence that was done. It took a really long time. It took them 5 months to shoot it. It was very complicated. And within 24 hours of that episode airing, someone had taken, I wonder if I can find this while I'm talking to you. You know what? Let's look for it. Somebody had taken the video of the main actor and had mapped Keanu Reeves onto that actor. Keanu Reeves Severance. Let's see if we can find it. What was really stunning to me, here we go. So this is the map of the face of one actor onto the other. And this is all done with AI, and it matches perfectly. And so we've come to this point where you can't tell what's real and what isn't all the time. The phrase seeing is believing is going away. And I find that extremely disturbing because, I'm pretty good with video and with visuals and with recognition and the uncanny valley. And I can usually tell when something's AI, but it's getting to the point where I can't. And that's going to apply to our epistemology as a whole. The way that we understand the world, the way that we look at things, we're not going to be able to tell what's real and what isn't. And so we're going to have to rely more and more and more on intuition and gut feelings and experiences and what we know from, in-person events. But we could be somewhere where something crazy happens and we could film it and we can put it online and people will be like, oh, that's fake, right? So this is already happening. So there's no easy way for us to discern between real and fake based on the kind of visual evidence that we have relied on for over 100 years. And that's a really frightening development. And when you combine that with the loss of trust in institutions, well, it creates a big problem because we don't even listen to the experts anymore and we just trust our own sense of things, and it's often wrong. So let's go back to the speech. I'm going to just skim across the top. I think you should read it. I'll put a link in the description to this speech. So he says, we have a government that's been given or has given unlimited funds to the defense of foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders, or more importantly, its own people. Our country can no longer deliver basic services in time of emergency, as recently shown by the wonderful people of North Carolina being treated so badly. This is just happening. Last weekend, they were getting kicked out in the middle of a snowstorm because FEMA said, well, your vouchers ran out. And there was no thought given. These people were living in hotels. Their houses are not safe to live in. They have nowhere to go. In the mountains there in Western North Carolina, it's much colder than it is even here in Raleigh. And it was cold here in Raleigh. And it's just this thoughtlessness. And he says, recently Los Angeles with the fires that are tragically burning without even a token of defense. We can't let this happen. Everyone is unable to do anything about it. That's going to change. We have a public health system that doesn't deliver in times of disaster, yet more money is spent on it than any country anywhere in the world. And we have an education system that teaches our children to be ashamed of themselves in many cases, to hate our country despite the love that we try so desperately to provide them. All this will change starting today. He talks about his election being a mandate. but then goes to, from this moment on, America's decline is over. This is a message that gets repeated throughout this speech. We have been in decline, but we are the greatest nation in the world, and we're going to start acting like it again. And this is what people need to hear. Our liberties and our nation's glorious destiny will no longer be denied, and we will immediately restore the integrity, competency, and loyalty of America's government. He talks about his own personal challenges, the assassination attempt. He says, I was saved by God. He believes he was saved by God to make America great again, which is why each day under administration of American patriots, we'll be working to meet every crisis with dignity and power and strength. These are important words because we have been watching a cluster Fukushima going on where, it hasn't been done with dignity or power or strength. We will move with purpose and speed to bring back hope, prosperity, safety, and peace for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day. I love that. I love that idea. I love the idea of the American people who were once so free being freed again because we're tearing down the corrupt bureaucracy that was holding them hostage. So he goes on different points. I'm not, again, going to touch on them all. He says, today I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. There's a video. Let me see if I can find it. It's not that one. It's not that one. This is it.
The first item that President Trump is signing is the rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions,
78 executive orders,
and others.
Gone with the stroke of a pen. It's kind of crazy. People are very excited about this because the executive orders from the last administration have not been great. All illegal entry to the country. Oh, he says, first I'll declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted. We will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy. News came out during the middle of the inaugural ceremonies that Texas was already closing the point of entry and securing the border. It's happening now. They're not waiting. He says he'll end the practice of catch and release and send troops to the southern border to repel the invasion of our country, already underway. Under orders I signed today, we'll also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, I'll direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil. So this isn't just the cartels, although that's huge because the cartels are working with China to take the precursors to fentanyl, and they're either manufacturing them or China's just shipping the fentanyl, and then it's coming in the United States, and it is killing people. The fentanyl crisis, if you have not been to an inner city where the homeless people are hooked on fentanyl, it is horrifying. They are like zombies. If you haven't seen it with your own eyes, it is a scene from a horror movie, and it has got to stop. And those are the people who don't necessarily die. A lot of people do die. There are kids who are dying because, they'll take a pill at a party and they don't know that it's laced with fentanyl, and they're gone. Like, that's it. One shot and they're done. Because the amount of fentanyl it takes to kill a person is so small, it's like the head of a pin. I mean, literally that size amount of the powder is enough to kill someone. And then, of course, the gangs. I mean, we have these, I think they're the Venezuelan gangs, the Tren de Agua or whatever it's called. I don't even know what it's called. And they are taking over the apartment buildings in Colorado and in other places. And so they're kidnapping people. They're doing forced prostitution. They're doing awful stuff. And nobody's doing anything about it. And so he's going to do something about it. He says, as commander-in-chief, I have no higher responsibility than defend our country from threats and invasions, and that is exactly what I'm going to do. And then they want to tackle inflation and bring down costs. He says, and he has been consistent about this, that the inflation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices. And that is why today I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. America will be a manufacturing nation once again, and we have something that no other manufacturing nation will ever have: the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth. People don't realize America has enormous fossil fuel reserves, but they are mostly, or at least partially, kept untapped because of environmental regulations. We have been described as the Saudi Arabia of shale oil. We have so much. And he says we're going to use it. And we'll bring prices down by using it, fill our strategic reserves up again right to the top, and export American energy all over the world. We will be a rich nation again. He's getting out of the Green New Deal, getting rid of the electric vehicle mandate, saving the auto industry, making cars in Detroit again, all the good stuff. He also says he's going to be establishing an external revenue service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues. He says that there will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury coming from foreign sources. I don't have the competency on tariffs to evaluate this claim. I know it's big for him. I know a lot of people don't like it. I don't feel like I know enough to be sure. It sounds good. And I also saw tonight that he's putting a freeze on hiring new IRS agents. There has definitely been a push where he's been floating the idea of either reducing or eliminating the IRS, which I don't think anybody would be sad about. And of course, establishing the brand new Office of Department of Government Efficiency. After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. Wouldn't that be nice? Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents, something I know something about. The amount of lawfare that man was subjected to and the fact that he somehow survived it all is, well, it may be a miracle. We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again under my leadership. We will restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. And we are going to bring back law and order to our cities. I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. What do you know about that? Common sense again. This week, I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full back pay. It says Payne, he said pay. I listened to the speech. And I will sign an order to stop our warriors from being subjected to radical political theories and social experiments on duty, have them focus on the mission. Like in 2017, we will again build the strongest military the world has ever seen. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. That was a line that got a lot of applause because we need to be out of the wars. We need to be out of wars that we don't need to be in. We need to be out of foreign wars. He says his proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier, and I actually think he can do that despite the attacks that are going to and have already begun against his administration. He says America will reclaim its rightful place as the greatest, most powerful, most respected nation on earth, inspiring the awe and admiration of the entire world. A short time from now, we are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. I believe he already issued the executive order on that. I find it hilarious. Do I think it's necessary? No. Do I understand the logic behind it? Yeah. It's a patriotic thing, right? I mean, why is it the Gulf of Mexico when it's the territorial waters of the United States? We will also restore the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley, where it should be and where it belongs. I didn't actually know this. Maybe you knew this. I did not know that Mount McKinley was renamed Denali in Alaska. Just had no idea. Never been to Alaska. Didn't realize that those were two different names for the same mountain. So he's going to put the name back, and I think that's kind of cool. He also says President McKinley made our country very rich through tariffs and through talent. He was a natural businessman and gave Teddy Roosevelt the money for many of the great things he did, including the Panama Canal, which has foolishly been given to the country of Panama after the United States. The United States, I mean, think of this, spent more money than ever on a project before It was the most expensive project ever done at the time, I believe. Lost 38,000 lives in the building of the Panama Canal. And then we gave it away. And Panama has, according to him, treated us very badly, charged us far too much in tolls. And now he says the worst thing is that China is operating the Panama Canal. And we didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back. Let's go. Because why shouldn't we? The tolls are tremendous. Like cargo ships, big cargo ships going through there pay like $1 million per passage. And what they do is they slap that fee onto every container that's on those ships, and that all gets passed along to the consumer. So they're big tolls. Above all, my message to Americans today is that it's time for us to once again act with courage, vigor, and the vitality of history's greatest civilization, which America is. So as we liberate our nation, we will lead it to new heights of victory and success. Again, positive, forward-thinking. Let's build it up. This is not a tear-down speech. He's talking about the problems, but only because he wants to fix them. We'll end the chronic disease epidemic, keep our children safe, yada, yada. The U.S. will once again consider itself a growing nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory, hello, Greenland, builds our cities, raises our expectations, and carries our flag into new and beautiful horizons. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars. How freaking cool is that? I love this stuff. Maybe I'm easy. Maybe I'm just a kid in a candy store, but I think this stuff is super cool. I love the idea of us taking Greenland and making it American. And the thing is, from everything I've read, the people of Greenland kind of want it too. Denmark hasn't done anything with it in all this time. There's huge natural resources there that could be exploited, that could enrich the people who live in Greenland. It's a strategic defensive position. It's close to the Arctic Circle, which is becoming a hot shipping lane. As, you know, like whatever you think of climate change, there is enough ice melt that there is more water in the channels up near the Arctic Circle, which makes it better for shipping than it used to be. And it's becoming I want to say a hot place, a hot destination for shipping, but it's cold. And I love the Mars thing. Look, I don't think Mars is the end, but this is our generation's moonshot, and I think it's pretty cool. And Elon is certainly very excited about it. He goes on, ambition is the life blood. Maybe I could try speaking clearly. Ambition is the lifeblood of a great nation, and right now our nation is more ambitious than any other. There's no nation like our nation. Americans are explorers, builders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and pioneers. The spirit of the frontier is written into our hearts. The call of the next great adventure resounds from within our souls. Our American ancestors turned a small group of colonies on the edge of a vast continent into a mighty republic of the most extraordinary citizens on earth. No one comes close. Americans pushed thousands of miles through a rugged land of untamed wilderness. They crossed deserts, scaled mountains, braved untold dangers, won the Wild West, ended slavery, rescued millions from tyranny, lifted billions from poverty, harnessed electricity, split the atom, launched mankind into the heavens, and put the universe of human knowledge into the palm of the human hand. If we work together, there is nothing we cannot do, and no dream we cannot achieve. This is a great speech. And his conclusion is, from this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation. We will stand bravely, we will live proudly, we will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way, because we are Americans. The future is ours, and our golden age has just begun. So, fantastic speech. Really liked it. And I really liked the way that he delivered it. He was calm. He was dignified. Obviously Trump can be combative, but I'm really hoping that that's not going to be the hallmark of this presidency. And I just hope he chooses not to engage with the media the way that he did in the past, because I just don't want to watch 4 more years of a pissing match between a hostile media and a defensive Trump. That's going to derail things. But I think the vision for this presidency is huge. He mentioned in this speech the cities that we're going to build I've said before, I think one of the coolest things that he's promised to do are these freedom cities. Have you heard about this? He wants to take a fraction of the federal land, national parks and different federal lands. The federal government owns like a third of the land in this country. And he wants to build, I think he said 10 new cities. And not a lot of people heard about this. It's really, really interesting. Actually, I wonder if I could find that freedom cities thing here.
Our objective will be a quantum leap in the American standard of living. That's what will happen. Here are just a few of the ways we can do it. Almost 1/3 of the land mass of the United States is owned by the federal government, with just a very, very small portion of that land, just a fraction, 1/2 of 1%. Would you believe that? We should hold a contest to charter up to 10 new cities and award them to the best proposals for development. In other words, we'll actually build new cities in our country again. These freedom cities will reopen the frontier, reignite American imagination, and give hundreds of thousands of young people and other people, all hardworking families, a new shot at home ownership and, in fact, the American dream.
Anyway, I think it's a really neat idea. There's a lot of innovation in this agenda, and I am a fan. What I'm not a fan of is the way that the media is going about things already. So Elon today, let me set the stage for this. Elon was very excited. He was like a kid in a candy store at this inauguration. And at one point, he gets up on stage, after the speech is over and the swearing in is done. And huge cheers from the crowd. And so he does this thing where he slaps his hand to his heart and throws his hand out to the crowd, and he's smiling. And then he comes back and he says, my heart goes out to you, right? And he holds his heart again. And everyone is saying that it's a Nazi salute. Here, check it out. You can see it for yourself.
I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured.
So that was what he did. And all of the NPCs, all the lefties are all saying that it's a Nazi salute. It's very clearly not. And I just find it just so disingenuous and dishonest and frustrating, because this is the crap that I don't want to see. What I want to believe is that, the efforts that this administration is going to make will bring prosperity to all Americans, even the people who don't like this administration. And a rising tide lifts all boats. And maybe, just maybe, if everybody finds that they're doing better, they can just put a sock in it for a little while. I know it's naive. I don't think it's actually going to happen. But just this thing where we weaponize every little gesture, every little misspoken word, where we try to turn molehills into mountains, all for political and ideological purposes, is crazy. It is freaking crazy. And I cannot stand it. But at the same time, you got to call out corruption sometimes, right? The entire Biden family was pardoned preemptively by the outgoing president, if we can call him that. What else happened? So the Biden family gets pardoned. He pardons Fauci for anything he did going all the way back to 2014, which is wild, because what's the history on going back that far? He preemptively pardoned, I believe, the members of the January 6th Commission, which is very interesting because Trump is already talking about releasing all the nonviolent offenders from January 6th and commuting the sentences of the others. He pardoned General Milley, who was on Trump's staff and then turned on Trump and said all these things about him that everybody who was in the room said weren't true. And he, fed the media all this alleged dirt about things that Trump said that were just awful, and nobody else could back this guy up. So he's been preemptively pardoned. Like, I don't even know how a preemptive pardon works. Like, at what point do you draw a boundary and say, well, that can't go any further than that? Can you, Rod Dreher said earlier today, can you pardon an entire state? Like, can you pardon people in perpetuity? How do you circumscribe this presidential power to pardon people? Nobody knows. People are saying that the biggest pardon ever was Biden because he pardoned, like over 7,500 people. But apparently over I read, there's a community note. It said, here, let me look. Said most of the Biden count is from a blanket pardon. So here's this chart of all the presidents. And then this is the Biden one. But they said most of the Biden count is from a blanket pardon of 6,500 offenders for marijuana possession. Yeah, those people should be pardoned. That's bullcrap. But Carter's blanket pardon of 209,000 Vietnam-era draft dodgers is missing. Okay, well, that's dishonest then. You can't do that. And after what happened in Vietnam, it's hard to blame people for dodging, honestly. We haven't been involved in a lot of good wars in quite a while. Let's see, what else was interesting about today? There was some funny stuff that came out. I thought this was good. Breaking: Trump to sign executive order declaring Disney Star Wars no longer canon and the removal of Kathleen Kennedy as president of Lucasfilm. Thought that was pretty good. This guy says Trump to bang Doug Emhoff today because Kamala Harris had tweeted back on November 3rd brimming with confidence. I already told my husband on January 20th, 2025, he will sleep with the next president of the United States. I don't even know if that's a real tweet. It could be fake. But the idea that Trump is now obligated to sleep with her husband. Okay, that was funny. Let's see. This is the footage of the egg. We're not going to talk about this. This is the UFO egg. That's for another episode. That was a tease. I thought I had another video or another thingy, but I guess I don't. So, this is where we are with the speech. Do we talk about anything else? How far are we? You know what I don't like about this software that I use to record this is that it doesn't tell me how long. Oh, there it is. I've been recording for 37 minutes. Yeah, I got a little bit more time. All right, so the egg. This is bonus content for this episode. So there was a special on News Nation on Saturday night, and that special teased footage of an actual recovery of an alleged UFO. And it was an hour-long piece that interviewed the guy who recovered it, and it was, it was teased as being kind of groundbreaking, but it was also like, it looks like an egg, right? So this happens, and well, I'll just let you watch this segment for yourself. This is the recovery footage. It's short, so they had to slow it down to kind of make it last a little longer. But this is the view from the helicopter looking down. And it does look like an egg. So it's supposed to be 150 feet of long line to this egg that was strapped to it. I don't understand
suspended from a
how
150-foot long line. We're told the craft is about 20 feet long.
I don't really understand how it was released.
Suspended in a cradle. And look how
so this thing is supposed to be the size of basically a large SUV, like a Suburban, or like a 15 or 12 passenger van, about 20 feet. So if you can imagine a car sitting right next to it, that's the kind of perspective that you're looking for. It's very difficult because this is night vision to really understand what we're looking at on the ground. It looks like, I mean, it was retrieved from a desert test range, allegedly. And so, this could be hard pan. There's no visible rotor wash. There's no visible vegetation. We don't really know what we're looking at.
As they bring their precious cargo into land. Let's freeze frame here to look at one of the clearest images of a UAP ever taken. This is no blurry light in a distant sky. The source of the footage putting themselves at incredible risk to record this UAP retrieval. Look at how perfectly smooth the craft is. No markings at all, and no visible means of propulsion or way to see inside. Watch how it rolls, almost graceful as it hits the ground, despite being wrapped in the rope.
Yeah, that's enough. So anyway, it's an egg, and we're not surprised by the fact that it's an egg because we were told that it was going to be an egg. But people are kind of TO'd about this because it was teased like, hey, this is a big deal. So here's the thing. You know, I watch a lot of this stuff, and I do it because I'm very interested in getting answers to the mystery, but I'm not just some gullible rube. And it's funny because you'll see people, I live rent free in the heads of some people, and they're like, oh, he abandoned his faith so that he could, you know, believe in aliens and UFOs as his new religion. This is not a religion for me. It's not a religion for me. This is a mystery that I find fascinating. It's a mystery that I have found fascinating since I was a young boy, because I always looked up at the stars, and I was always fascinated with space and the vastness of space and how far away things were and how much was out there. You know, they say that there's over 100 billion galaxies. Like, do you know how big the Milky Way is? It's ridiculously large. You know, even in Star Trek with warp drive, they never left the Milky Way because it was too big to get out of. It takes, I forget, like 100,000 years to get for light to get from one end of the Milky Way to the other. It's at a scale that's incomprehensible. And so the idea that there's 100 billion galaxies out there, but there's just no other life, is pretty hard to believe. And so I've been interested in this since I was a kid. And now we've had a steady drumbeat of people coming out and talking about the fact that this stuff is real. And, you know, a lot of government people who are like, yeah, we're involved in this. Like, there are crashes. We've recovered them. There are bodies in the crashes. We've recovered them. We have this stuff. We're attempting to reverse engineer it. People who are decorated military or intelligence officers who have sterling reputations and everything to lose by coming forward with this stuff. And they still do, because they believe that the public has a right to know. And I do too. I think that the public has a right to know. And I've seen UFOs personally with my wife and my son. We saw a grouping of them in the sky over Phoenix a couple years ago, and they were very weird, and they felt very weird. You know, they were the glowing orbs. We've had these drones that I've done videos about, you know, back in December. A bunch of these drones over military bases, over nuclear sites, over suburbs, especially over New Jersey, over commercial airports. I mean, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base had to shut down their airspace because of drone incursions. It is a no-fly zone. Nobody's allowed to fly over that base. But they did, and they couldn't take them down. Naval Weapons Station Earl, which is on the coast of Virginia, tried to use de-droning technology to take out the drones that were flying over. Didn't work. What was the other one? There's another one. And Picatinny Arsenal in New Jersey said that they've had at least 11 confirmed sightings of unknown drones. Pentagon says they're not ours. They're not any enemies that we know of. And that's all they're willing to say. White House came out and said, you know what? They're just normal hobbyists or commercial drones or law enforcement just flying legally. It's like there's nothing legal about these things being over nuclear plants and being over military bases. That is restricted airspace. So you can't go there. You know, I have 2 DJI drones, and I'm not flying them all the time, but I do use them occasionally. And they have something on them called geofencing. Well, they did. China, I think it was a retributive move on China's part, but they just removed the geofencing from all of their drones with an update. But it used to be that if you were within 5 miles of an airport, you had flight restrictions on that thing, and the controller just wouldn't let you go where you weren't supposed to go. Part of the de-droning technology that exists over military bases, I've seen videos of people trying to get close to secured areas. It immediately will send the drone back to its starting GPS point. Like, it just turns around and comes back. And you just can't fly it. Like, you lose control of it and it just comes home. There's a lot of tech in these drones. So China just removed those restrictions, which to me feels like the prelude to some kind of terrorist attack using drones. They use DJI drones in the Ukraine and Russia war. They pack them with explosives and they use them to take out trucks or to kill soldiers. Like, there's a real danger to the drones. And if you've ever seen the drone swarm light shows, and like 80,000 drones, all in synchronization, making cool pictures in the sky of dragons or of whatever. China's been doing these. Like, imagine a drone swarm, packed with munitions and attacking a high value target. There's no way. I mean, I don't even care what kind of point defense system you have. You will not take out thousands and thousands and thousands of drones. Some of them will hit and some of them will do damage. So this is the world that we're entering into. And with AI being able to coordinate these massive swarms, we're entering a completely new world of asymmetrical warfare. So, it's something to be concerned about. But these drones that people are seeing over New Jersey and over Virginia, and actually Trump met with the Republican governors. The governor of Louisiana said that they were flying over their nuclear sites. Governor of Virginia said that they've been flying over the naval base, which we already talked about. The governor of Wyoming said that they had them there. And all of the governors we don't know what they are and we can't get answers. Matt Laszlo, who is a political journalist, an independent journalist who's been working Capitol Hill for 19 years, said that when he tries to approach members of Congress who have been briefed on these drones, they won't talk about it. Like, they just change the subject. He's like, I've never seen anything like it. They would rather talk about anything else than talk about the drones. And I asked him directly, I said, do they seem worried? And he goes, 100%. He's like, they can't get answers for their families, for their constituents. They don't know what these things are. Everybody who's reporting them says that they look like planes much of the time. Like, they're disguised to look like commercial aircraft, but they're flying much lower, much slower. They look weird. Like, they look like if you ever tried to make an AI image of something and it's close but no cigar, like, try to make an AI image of a fighter jet. Say, like, make an F-16. It's like, it looks kind of like an F-16, but it also doesn't. It's always wrong somehow. It's always off because the AI is just not there yet where it can make one-to-one replicas of specific designs. Well, that's what people say these look like. Like, they look like a plane, but like not like a plane. And they're big. Also, like the egg here, they're like the size of a car or SUV. In fact, my son, Alex, who's 15, said that one night he was having trouble sleeping. It was like 4:30 in the morning. He's lying in bed and he sees a really bright light outside. And he looks and there is a large car-sized drone, according to him, I didn't see it, flying through our neighborhood low. And it was lighting up the whole street. And he said it kind of drifted over our yard and then like it went back around the back of the house. And when it made a second pass, it was further away. And he tried to get a video of it, but he was trying to film it through the blinds, through the screen. It was a blurry video. It was just like every video you've ever seen of an unidentified craft where you just can't make anything out. But he said it was really kind of freaky. Now, I didn't see it, but I wasn't up at 4:30 in the morning. And I told him next time that he needs to wake me up so that I know. But there's stuff going on in our skies that they're not telling us about. And so I'm very interested in the mystery. And so when a thing like this video comes out, I'm intrigued. And so the man who conducts the interview here, his name is Ross Coulthard. He's an Australian award-winning journalist. This guy was one of the biggest journalists in Australia. He was on 60 Minutes Australia. He was on their Channel 7, which is like a big news channel there. He's now reporting on the phenomenon of UFO and UAP encounters for News Nation, which is sort of an upstart network here in the United States. And they've got some big names on there. Elizabeth Vargas and Chris Cuomo and some other people who were on other networks kind of came together and made this new channel. So Ross reports on this stuff, and he's a serious guy. He's written a book. He started out as a skeptic. I've been following him for years. He's not a bullshitter. And so when he says, this is for real, I believe that he's done his due diligence and that he's vetted the thing. But people don't like this video because it's an egg. And what the heck? Why are we looking at an egg on a string? That's what people say. But if it's real, it doesn't matter if it looks like an egg. And this is the thing that I don't think people understand. They're mad because of what it looks like. And they're just like, why don't you look more like a UFO? Well, it's like, if it is one, it doesn't matter. Like, why does it have to conform to our expectations? It doesn't need to be the ship from Close Encounters of the Third Kind or, a Star Destroyer from Star Wars. Like, if this is what they're flying in, a lot of the stuff that gets caught on film in the sky looks pretty weird. It doesn't look like what you would expect an alien spacecraft to look like. And numerous people have reported over the years seeing UAPs that are egg-shaped. One of the biggest sightings that has the most corroborative data was the 2004 encounter with the Tic Tac UFO off the coast of San Diego. It was the USS Nimitz and the USS Princeton, and they were doing maneuvers preparing for a deployment to the Middle East. And you had Commander David Fravor, who was, I believe, the commanding officer of the Black Aces Squadron. His co-pilot, he had another, Lieutenant Alex Dietrich was flying another plane with him. They encountered this thing over the water that looked like, in his description, a Tic Tac. He said it was the same size as the plane, 20 to 30 feet long. And it was a white lozenge that looked like a Tic Tac. It was nondescript. It had no wings or rudders or control surfaces of any kind. It had no visible propulsion, but it maneuvered like it could just mirror the movements of his fighter jet when he was flying an F-18 Super Hornet. And they circled each other for a while, and then the thing just took off, like gone, took off. And he says that the speed that it would have had to travel at to disappear that quickly is exponentially higher than anything we have in our arsenal, and that any pilot that was on board would have been pulverized by the G-forces of that acceleration. And then he gets a call from the Princeton, which I believe was operating as the radar boat for the exercise. And they said, you're not going to believe this, but that thing just showed up 60 miles away at your cap point, which was a classified waypoint that he was supposed to go to for the exercises that he was doing. So it knew where he was going. It got there ahead of him. It showed back up on radar, and it did it in seconds, 60 miles in just a few seconds. So the speeds that these things are traveling at are just impossible for anything that we have. And that thing didn't look like an egg. It looked like a big Tic Tac, a big white Tic Tac with nondescript, no windows, no nothing. So if a Tic Tac can be a UFO, why can't an egg? That's the way I look at it. But people are skeeved out by this, and they feel like it's setting the whole thing back. And I get it. It's not exciting to see a UFO that looks like an egg. And there's some questions about the provenance of the footage. So it was supposedly picked up by this guy. His name is Jake Barber, and he is a helicopter pilot who served and then has been acting as a contractor doing crash retrievals. And this video is of unclear provenance because he describes retrieving an object that looks like this, but they said that they obtained this video independently, so they make it sound like it's a different video altogether. I don't know. But then in his interview later on, he says something that I found super interesting, and I want to share that with you.
So there was another object. There's two objects that I'm here to talk about. One was the egg. The other is what we called an 8-gon. The 8-gon was essentially a flying disc with what looked like 8 delineated sections when looking down. And I can tell you what it looked like from looking down because that's primarily how I saw it, because I'm a helicopter pilot. We did recoveries with the 8-gons. There was more than one that made its way to the ground on this particular operation.
Simply seeing a non-human craft up close would be an intense experience in itself. But Barber says as he prepared to transport that so-called 8-gon from the pickup site to the drop site, something even more intense happened to him that would change his life forever.
This is one of the most profound experiences I've ever had in my life I'm about to share with you, so bear with me. So as I get closer to this pick site, I start feeling odd. I start feeling extremely emotional. And the closer I get, the more the emotion starts to overwhelm me. I feel this intense hybrid of sadness and happiness and beauty and song. And it was very disruptive to me because I had a very practical responsibility at the time to operate a helicopter in the mountains at night. And I began wondering what was wrong with me. It was late. I'm like, am I distressed? Am I tired? I don't know. But as I came over this object for the pick, there was this overwhelming sense of emotion.
Is it your feeling? Are you suddenly having a mental breakdown on the job?
No, I felt like something connected with me. I felt like something had tuned in to me and my soul and was providing me some sense of guidance on what to do and how profound what I was doing was. And it was so overwhelming that I began to cry. And then I'm confused as to why I'm crying at the same time. And then do I abort the mission? So I just did my best to focus on my particular cues when doing this type of work. And I got the load hooked up and I began flying away. And once it was just me and that object in between the pick and the drop site, there's about 20 miles in between, I felt like something was inside of me. I felt like I was possessed by the most beautiful spirit I'd ever been possessed by. And
was it loving?
It was loving. But there was a sense of sadness at the same time. And
had you ever had an experience like this before?
No, it was a very feminine energy, I'll tell you that. It felt like the spirit of God, but not in any masculine sense. And it wasn't like a soul, it was like a frequency that I was connected with. And whatever that force was since that night, it has stayed with me. And as crazy as this sounds, it's what's guiding me now. And it's what's providing protection for me.
It's changed your life.
It's changed my life.
So that's that, which is weird. But I actually found that to be the more interesting piece of this interview. This guy also says that he was sent out to pick up another container at one point. I mean, that's his whole job, is he and his crew go and pick up weird stuff that either crashes in these military test ranges or wherever. And so they went to pick up this crate, and it made them all very sick, like radiation. Hair all fell out. The skin started sloughing off of his arms. It was a really bad deal. And the entire crew got sick, and they never found out what was in the container. So these guys are out just picking up stuff, and they don't know what they're being sent into. And they've now formed a private company to kind of do their own analysis and data, because they're being sent on these secret missions all the time, and they want to find other stuff. But this gets into the psychic stuff. It gets into the telepathic stuff, because allegedly these craft, and this is not the first time I've heard this, these, for lack of a better term, alien or non-human craft are all somehow controlled or interfaced with using telepathy. And this takes me to the telepathy tapes, which we need to do a show about. Kayla and I probably need to do a show about that. But if you haven't listened to the telepathy tapes, I've written about it a bunch of times. The Telepathy Tapes is a podcast that is now gone gangbusters, bigger than Joe Rogan. It's a 10-episode documentary, audio-only documentary series about nonverbal, mostly autistic kids who, when they are able to communicate using methods like spelling or rapid prompting method, different they use assisted devices that they can type on using only gross motor skills. They are communicating things that indicate to their caretakers, usually their parents, oftentimes it's their mother, that they can read minds. And so they do a bunch of experiments in each of the episodes to prove it, and these kids get it right 100% of the time. It's wild. But it's kind of paradigm breaking, right? But we know that the U.S. government, you can Google this yourself, look up Project Stargate. We actually had a military project that was designed to utilize remote viewing for intelligence gathering. So basically, somebody's given a target, they sit in a room, they engage their psionic powers, and they try to see what they can see about the target that they're assigned. And the intelligence has been so accurate sometimes that it's actually been utilized to recover assets, to find hostages. I mean, there's some crazy stories behind this stuff. And so we're entering this world where there's some very difficult to believe things going on, and you can take them at face value and just try to evaluate them, but for most people it's kind of a bridge too far. Trump has said, by the way, that he's going to release very soon after the inauguration a report on what the heck these drones are that have been flying over. He also said he's going to release the JFK files, which some people speculate have their own connection to UFOs, because JFK was looking into that topic shortly before he was assassinated. Kash Patel, who is Trump's nominee for heading up the FBI, actually said that everything that people really want to know about the JFK assassination has already come out. The stuff that's still confidential has nothing to do with the murder itself. It has to do with other things, and he won't get into what it is. He said he's read the entire file because he used to work as a director of national intelligence or something like that. So anyway, just there's a lot of this interesting and mysterious stuff out there. And if you're into that stuff, like I am, it's really fascinating. But I don't know what to make of the egg. I think that the egg, it is what it is, right? I mean, these guys are vetted. They have colleagues who are willing to vouch for them and say that they're the real deal, that they're telling the truth. We have journalists who know what they're doing, who say they've vetted the story. So people see the egg and they're like, that's absurd. But if a UFO is shaped like an egg, what do you think it's going to look like on camera? It's going to look like an egg. So anyway, that's my show for tonight. We're just a little over an hour. I need to stop doing solo missions probably. I already saw that there were some audio problems that I'm going to have to fix and post. So this, although I've been talking in terms of it being today, the day of the inauguration, it's when I recorded. It's currently 9 o'clock on January 20th, 9 p.m. The edits may mean that this episode doesn't come out until tomorrow. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I will try to do shows more often. And when I actually build a little bit of an audience, maybe I can get some guests who are like, hey, you have more than 500 people who watch your podcast, so we'll come on. So anyway, we'll see you next time. I'm Steve, signing off.